When I research my books for nonfiction picture book biographies and young adult narrative nonfiction books, I, of course, start off at the library. I do my primary research. I look up any books that were published about the same topic that I'm researching or books about the same person I'm researching. I then go to the archives of newspapers. I go and I try to find out as much information as I can. Now, as a journalist, I also know you don't want to just stick with the New York Times, the big papers. For Sammy Lee, started looking up articles in the local Pasadena weekly papers. Was there anything written there? Was there anything in the historical society, local historical societies, that kind of thing. So, you have to think outside the box, even with primary resources. What are other, this person grew up in, I grew up in Connecticut. Let's look up the Hartford Courant. Let's look up, maybe there are local articles, because you would be surprised how much, and actually you shouldn't be surprised by how much amazing reporting and investigative journalism is done by smaller local newspapers, because they have access to certain things other people didn't. I then try to interview as many people as I can who are alive. For example, with Muhammad Yunus, I found him. I found his website. I cold emailed the people there and they said, coincidence, he's going to be in LA next month. And I said, great, I want to interview him. So I had the honor of meeting and interviewing him. In terms of Anna May Wong, because she passed away a very long time ago, other research that I did, I watched as many movies of hers as I could. I read movie reviews. I did historical research on how silent movies were made, the transition to talkies, what her life was like in Europe, just looking at press conferences and, any images that I could see of her so I could hear her voice, and what it was like to hear her speak, to get her cadence, to understand, how she talked. And one of the things as a writer is the one thing that keeps me from getting lost in the weeds of my research is always thinking about story and character and heart. So anything that I highlight, it either has to provide new information that pushes the story forward, that gets you to the next chapter or the next page, or provides an insight to the main historical subject's emotional state. Where were they feeling at this point? How did that get them to the next stage? When Sammy Lee was told, you can't use the swimming pool because you're not white, what was the information that I found in my research that led to him saying, I'm still going to learn how to dive, even though I can't use this swimming pool? So ultimate, and I think that keeps you from falling down the rabbit hole of research, because we can get distracted, we're just like, oh, well, that's interesting, and then you're off on it, and you always have to remind yourself, no, I'm here researching for something very specific. And again, it's like being a detective. I can't be distracted. I'm in a room, I'm at the crime site, I can't be distracted by everything. I'm looking for one thing. I'm looking for a fingerprint that will lead me to the criminal. And that's what I'm doing with my research. What are the fingerprints that push the story forward, that show you the emotional arc of where the character is at the beginning?
For more author interviews, please visit readingrockets.org. This author interview was produced through a partnership of the National Education Association and WETA.